if I'm Cincinnati, I am significantly worried about Joe Burrow. You know, he sat down with ESPN and Laura Rutledge at the Super Bowl. He talked about in great detail about what players should get paid, cap numbers, and cash flow. And you're attacking T. Higgins, who we're looking at here for the second consecutive year. And Trey Hendrickson, guys, has 35 sacks over the last 2 years. He's 30 years old. He's high character. Those guys never, ever, ever leave your building, ever. And T. Higgins needs to get paid. And if I'm Cincinnati, I'm worrying about, is Joe Burrow all in here?
You're an idiot and a scammer.
Well, the Bengals actually made moves for the first time in forever. The Bengals finally paid up their star wide receivers. This is Sports Guy talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about the Bengals destroying another media narrative. Bengals owner Mike Brown finally paid up his superstar wide receivers in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. With those moves occurring, it now signals the Bengals to be ready to win now in the Joe Burrow era. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So, here it is. Did the Bengals make the right decision to pay up their star wide receivers? I'm going to say yes to this question because Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. When you have an elite quarterback like Joe Burrow, you better do everything you can to build the team around Joe Burrow in a successful fashion. The Cincinnati Bengals finally made the right moves to pay up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Matter of fact, the Bengals probably should have done this last year. Imagine if the Cincinnati Bengals actually paid up their star wide receivers on time. They would have had to pay them less money and they could have had more cap space to do more moves in this offseason. The Cincinnati Bengals paid their star receivers late because their owner is very cheap. Mike Brown is one of the cheapest owners. He doesn't like paying up his players more often than not. But in the case of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, he really didn't have much of a choice. Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in the National Football League. Jamar Chase earned every penny that he got in his next contract. 4 years, $161 million. That averages out to $40.25 million a year. He earned every cent of that deal. The guy led in receptions, he led in receiving yards, and he led in receiving touchdowns. Anytime the Bengals needed a big-time play to be made, throw the football to Jamar Chase because Jamar Chase would always make plays with the football in his hands. The guy could catch everything and he could turn a small pass into a home run play. That was the kind of player Jamar Chase is. And you know what's the special thing about the Cincinnati Bengals with Jamar Chase? You can't necessarily even double team Jamar Chase because the other side of Jamar Chase is T. Higgins. The man got paid as well. 4 years, $115 million. He earned every cent of that deal. Congrats to T. Higgins for getting the bag because he absolutely earned it. He's now averaging $28.75 million a year. Again, he earned every cent of it. Is it a little expensive for a wide receiver too? Absolutely. However, T. Higgins is the best wide receiver too in the National Football League. When you talk about a wide receiver duo of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it really doesn't get much better than that. I know the conventional thinking is you don't pay up two star wide receivers on the roster at the same time, but we're living in a world where offensive production is valued more than ever. Joe Burrow also begged the Bengals to pay up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you basically had to listen to Joe Burrow. If T. Higgins and or Jamar Chase walked from the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow would have essentially requested a trade from the organization. Joe Burrow is more valuable than any member of the organization in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is the city of Cincinnati. If Joe Burrow was to ever request a trade in the city of Cincinnati, that would devastate the entire franchise. That would be the equivalency of the Dallas Mavericks trading away Luka Doncic. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks were absolute idiots for trading away Luka Doncic, but that's neither here nor there. I'm here to talk about Joe Burrow, not Luka Doncic. Joe Burrow went on First Take and talked about how they needed to keep Jamar Chase and T. Higgins at all costs. He was so absolute in his answers. I also want to show you guys this clip of Joe Burrow answering the questions from Stephen A. Smith on First Take. I thought his answers were rather interesting at the time. Of course, Joe Burrow ended up getting what he wanted. Roll the film.
Should one of the discussions be, under no circumstances do we lose a Jamar Chase, that's a brother that needs to stay in Cincinnati as long as you're there?
Yes, of course. That's everybody sees what he does on the field week in and week out for us. He's a guy that continues to make big-time plays every single time he touches the field. So when you have a guy like that, you can't let him leave the building.
What about T. Higgins, Joe?
Yeah, that's a guy that we got to keep too. When he's on the field, he's a game changer for us, not only for our team, but for Jamar. Teams can't just focus in on him and double him and cloud him. They have to worry about T. Higgins on the other side of the field. And, we have the space that we need to keep both of those guys.
Correct! Hallelujah, Joe Burrow. You got what you wanted. Now there's no excuses for you. I'm not saying that Joe Burrow is a trash quarterback. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. Joe Burrow is a top 4 quarterback in the National Football League. But what I am saying for Joe Burrow is that he better have another great year for the Cincinnati Bengals, because if the Bengals don't have another great year while Joe Burrow regresses in his production, people in Cincinnati will start looking at Joe Burrow funny, because they were saying to him, man, you really wanted your star wide receivers to get paid, and you wanted the Bengals to spend their entire cap space on offense, and this is the result we're getting. Joe Burrow, you better show out and have another great year. Now, do I think Joe Burrow is going to do that? Of course Joe Burrow will do that. Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback. In a league where quarterbacks have been starting for elite production, Joe Burrow is definitely an elite quarterback. There's an argument to be made that Joe Burrow is a top 2 quarterback in the National Football League. Personally, for me, he's the 4th best quarterback in the National Football League. He's just behind Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. But if you want to argue that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, I'm not going to stop you from making that argument. Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Now the Bengals have the best wide receiver 1 on their roster in Jamar Chase, and they have the best wide receiver 2 in the National Football League in T. Higgins. This Cincinnati Bengals offense should be explosive next season. They were already explosive this past season. I expect the Bengals offense to somehow even get better in 2025. The offense is absolutely loaded. You've got Mike Gesicki, who's one of the better tight ends in the National Football League. You've got Chase Brown, a young up-and-coming running back. I really like his potential as far as I'm concerned. I also like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins being on the same roster at the same time. That offense is going to be equivalent to the greatest show on turf. There's not really a whole lot you can do to stop the weapons from showing out in Cincinnati. The offensive line is getting better in Cincinnati as well. Don't be surprised if they come out next year with 12 wins. They're one of the best offensive units defensively. It's still going to be a little bit rough. Let's see if they get Trey Hendrickson back in Cincinnati. He's already requested a trade. If the Bengals can manage to get Trey Hendrickson back in 2025, that would be a major boost to the Bengals organization. The Bengals defense isn't really good, but Trey Hendrickson is one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. If the Cincinnati Bengals can continue to keep building their core effectively while paying up their star players on time, this is still going to be a good football team. When you have a top 5 quarterback on your roster, you have a chance to contend for championships every single year. That's what I love about the National Football League. If you have a great quarterback, you always have a chance to succeed. Good job to the Bengals for destroying another media narrative. A lot of people complained that Mike Brown was a cheap owner. Well, Mike Brown finally paid up his star players on time. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins earned every penny that they did for that organization. They helped the Bengals make the Super Bowl in the 2021 NFL season. They've been productive players on a consistent basis. There's a lot to like about those guys. They've been great for the city of Cincinnati, and I expect great production to continue for both of those guys. So that is why the Bengals made the right decision to pay up their star wide receivers, as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins earned every penny for the city of Cincinnati. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking. Like the video and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @DustinNashTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinNashTran, and that's Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinNashTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.